Come and get it, everybody. ChiroFEAST is online and we are ready to serve, and we're serving up referrals today. It's one of my favorite subjects to talk about, and I've got a wonderful gentleman to introduce you to that actually has that word referral in the name of his business. So, Dave Rominski, welcome to Big Fish ChiroFEAST.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. No, I'm excited to talk to you. Dave, maybe I'll say this on the front end because I always like to give a little bit of a synopsis because people start listening, and if they're interested, they'll stay with me. Um, Maybe I'll start by just asking our audience this. Have you ever been so busy running around thinking that you're supposed to be making a lot of money, and because you're so busy, but the numbers don't add up at the end of the month? And you realize that you're not taking care of the right people. Maybe you're not even having as much fun because it's not the right cases or the right kind of people sitting in front of you. But you're definitely not making the right money. And is there a way to kind of target the right people so that your busyness actually provides that income that you're looking for, so that at the end of the month there's profitability? So if you want more profitability and you want to be busy with the right people, keep listening to this podcast episode. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So, Dave, why don't you give us a little bit of a history lesson on who you are, where you've been? I know you've been doing this for a long time. You've got the same haircut as me, so um, you know,
Good
uh,
start.
yeah. Tell us your history.
Sure, yeah. So my background is in healthcare. I'm a chiropractor by trade. We practice in the Chicagoland market, and really how this whole thing came about was we're in practice and trying to make ends meet and trying to grow our patients, and we're saving up for a big publication. And at the time, we really wanted to target females with neck and low back pain, and so we saved up and gotten this big publication. So publication comes out, and at that time, I had team meetings every Friday that would meet with my team. I had 8 people that was working with me between, front desk and assistants and therapists and that type of thing. So we met every Friday. And so our phone had been ringing off the hook. So I asked my office manager, I'm like, hey, how's that ad going? She goes, the phone's ringing off the hook. Yes. She goes, but it's going awful. I go, what do you mean it's going awful? She's like, of all those phone calls and stuff we've only gotten 2 patients that are really the patients that you want to see in the peer mix that you're looking for. So I was frustrated. I'm like, this is crazy, right? So I'm like, okay, this is what I want everybody to do. Take your top 10 favorite patients and bring them back to us next week. Don't share them with anyone else. Keep them to yourself and bring them back next week. So fast forward 1 week and we have 80 names, right? So we looked at all the 80 names. Of the 80 names, 62 of them were the same people. So I'm like, well, wait a minute. If everyone loves to see them, right from the front desk, the assistants to the billing, let's see where these people are coming from. So I told my office manager, I'm like, listen, let's find out where these 62 people are coming from. Forget everything else and let's focus there. Because if everyone loves to see them, including billing people and the staff themselves, obviously this is who we want to surround ourselves with. So looking at that data coming back, of those 62 names, 58 of them were referred by other healthcare providers. So I'm
Wow.
like, oh my gosh, 58 of the 62 are referred for them. Let's focus on that. So that's what we did. So we're going out and we're trying to build these relationships with these referring providers. And we had no idea really what we were doing, right? We are trying to figure it out, but we did. We figured it out after a few years. And what we saw is that not only were we getting busier, but our profitability of our practice was increasing tremendously. So I started asking around and to other healthcare providers and said, hey, listen, is this, a thing for you too? And they're like, yeah, referrals are by far the best way to grow a practice. So I'm like, that's it. So I sold my practice in 2010 and started Doctor Referral Institute. And for the last 16 years, that's what we do. We implement some systems and processes we've developed to help build referral development systems for practice all over the country, really focusing on what clients are good at and paid well for to make sure that they're truly seeing the patients that they want to see.
I and if you're Dave, just so you know, we've got all kinds of providers that listen to ChiroFEAST. It's not just chiropractors. We've got physical therapists, massage therapists, mental health providers. So this is not just a system for chiropractors. In fact, I think you mentioned before we started recording that chiropractic is just like 10% of what you do.
Yeah, we represent about 40 different providers, types of specialties around the country. It really doesn't matter to us. If you can receive a referral, you can be a client of ours, right? So that's someone that really looks at. Now, I'll give you for example, right, is if you were a primary care provider or if you were a general dentist, then you probably wouldn't be a client of ours because we would be someone who'd be targeting you or marketing to you, but you wouldn't be a client because you really don't receive referrals, unlike chiropractors or name another 40 specialties like you talked about mental health or any of the other things. Those are really who we work with to help build their relationships.
Got it. Got it. So, so listeners, if you're sitting there thinking, okay, if I have new patient paperwork that I'm looking at and it says referred by Dr. Bob down the street, um, that should get you excited because that's going to be a good case. Tell me why that one holds more value than just your random
Yeah,
referral or
good,
random.
good question. Yeah, good question, Jeff. So when you look at statistically, all right, a patient that is referred by another provider will fall through with care 83% of the time. I'm not just talking about an intake. I'm talking about follow through with the recommendation of the provider versus other resources. We're seeing about 19 to 24%. So the patient's already pre-qualified to be the right case, and they're going to follow through with the care of recommendation that you want, right? Which that's pretty valuable, right? To make sure that you got not only cases that you want to see, but those are going to follow through with your recommendations, which we all know you're going to increase your success rate of that case if they follow through.
Yeah, you know, in a way, the patient is motivated to um, make the referring doctor happy, right? They actually want to make that doctor proud by doing what they're supposed to do. Okay. Now, it doesn't always work that way. I mean, there's always
Sure, of
the
course.
or whatever. But in general, they want to be able to go back to the referring doctor and say, thanks for that referral. I got better. And so they're more likely to actually follow through and do what you are recommending. And so you can recommend a strong care program for those people because they're likely to do it. Now, of course, I believe in giving the care plan for what the patient needs. Period. I don't care who's sitting in front of me, but it's a nice feeling to know that person sitting in front of me is likely to follow through. So that's pretty cool. So what's the biggest problem? So you created this company, Doctor Referral Institute. What's the biggest problem that you are trying to solve for providers out there?
Well, I think that there's a couple different things, right? And it comes back to so for anyone that we deal with, we offer them a free referral evaluation. Costs them nothing for us to take 20, 30 minutes, learn more about their practice and what they're doing. But one glaring thing we see all the time on this evaluation, and we understand, so take a step back. In school, we're educated to understand how to take care of the patient, right? But on the business side, that's not a lot of the courses that we get, right? It's you're kind of on your own. So a big thing for us is numbers don't lie. So when we look at providers and we do this referral evaluation, it's truly understanding their cases. All right, what is this case worth to you? That payer mix, and not a guess. Well, I get 1,500, 2,000. No, no, no. What is the exact number? Because you should be able to know that stuff, right? If I'm getting whether it's a Blue Cross Blue Shield or if it's a United or if it's a PI case or whatever case you're getting and the condition you have themselves, understanding them, right? That's one thing that we see is a big problem that doctors really don't understand. The second thing is this: every patient that walks through your door, you should know who their primary care provider is. Whether referred or not, it's got nothing to do with it. You need to know who they are because either A, that's someone you need to thank for that referral, or B, that's someone new you potentially go after to help build and nurture a relationship because they got to you somehow. Right. So that's big things as far as a problem side of it that we see on the initial side of it that a lot of providers don't do or take the time to do. Right. So the other thing is going to be too is that we see a lot of times that they think that, okay, well, I went to those offices, I didn't get anything, right? Showing up once in a great while is not how you build a referral relationship. And that's really what we help providers with, right? Is how do you really do it the right way? What do you say? What don't you say? Right. And frankly, the referring provider could care less who you are. They want to know what are you gonna do for them and my patients. Right.
Right.
So that messaging is a huge deal.
How can you make my life easier?
Yep. Well, I know you think about too from the referring provider too, same thing for them. They're graded by a lot of plans on how well they refer people out. So if a provider does not have a solution for a case that they see, then the patient's on their own, they lose control of that patient. So you truly can be a resource for them also.
Yeah. I remember talking to a medical doctor a while back, and she said to me, she goes, "We don't have anything that we can do for all these low back people. Man, I just I want to boot them out of my office, because they drive me crazy. All I can do is give them drugs, and I don't want to do that. So if you can take the low back pain people out of my office, I will love you forever." Literally, that doctor said that. So, and I think chiropractors in general, we still feel like there's this taboo that the medical doctors are not going to refer to us. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, you know what? And that is okay. So, and I can say this as a chiropractor, that's our fault, right? That's on us because a lot of that stigma is not out there anymore. There's a few that have that, but a lot of those are not the case, really the case anymore. And really, they're looking for solutions because chiropractic is absolutely mainstream. Look at the number of patients that we see compared to other providers and stuff. It's significant. So that's really a self complex versus a reality complex, in my opinion, right? So us educating them on what's going on and what we need to do is extremely important and frankly a responsibility.
So before we started recording, you were talking a little bit about that. I think you said we started to target a certain type of patient with certain type of insurance, and I think any chiropractor that is practicing or any provider uh, that's practicing has that scenario, that type of person and that type of insurance program, or whether it be PI, work comp, or whatever, that they would like to see more of in their practice. How Tell me a little bit about that story that you guys decided to focus on and
Yeah.
what you can do for our listeners.
Yeah, and so that's a big thing too is we talked about understanding the numbers, right, of what you truly want to go and see. But that avatar, which is what we call it, that you want to go and see for those patients, it's developing your communication around those cases. The more you ask for what you want, the more you're going to get it. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to say, oh, we can't take anything else. That's not the case. But the more you create that top of mind awareness to the referring providers, the more you're going to see what you're looking for. And what we've developed is several different programs with what we're doing, not only a cadence as far as how often you're communicating, but what to communicate to the referring provider. And that's whether our team does the work or if you work with one of our coaching programs that we help you do the work. It's got to be a cadence of those cases. So you create that top of mind awareness, but also remind them of the other things that you do. And we call it a condition of the month program and different aspects. And the thing is going to be too is a lot of doctors have someone on their staff that we could educate and do this. Or but the biggest thing is going to be for them is they don't know how to, or they don't know what to say or
Right.
how to say it. And that cadence makes them feel uncomfortable, right? So if you can empower them, you got a really good shot at being successful doing so.
So if you've got a chiropractor that wants to see more extremity cases, like, man, just love working on knees and shoulders and hips and ankles and stuff like that. Can your company help a chiropractor grow that business by getting those type of cases referred?
Yeah, it doesn't matter the condition. Insert whatever it is. It's our whole thing is what are you good at? What are you paid well for? Who has those cases and how to communicate to them? That's it. Doesn't matter what it is, right? So for us, it's finding out truly, and that's what we do in our evaluations, find a little bit really what do you want to see? Why do you want to see that? And then moving and directing it from there. Because those questions are and maybe you have a case that you want to see. Maybe you want to do carpal tunnel, or maybe you want to do whatever it is that you want to deal with. But then it's understanding the whys and the finances behind it to make sure that you're driving cases that you truly are going to get you where you want to go.
Yeah.
Because if you think about that, which we talked about previously, the person who walks through the door, the quality of that case, the only one affected financially by it is you, the owner. Everybody else gets paid the same, right? Your front desk, your assistants, your billing person, your office manager, everybody else gets paid the same amount of money, except you. So that's why it matters on what you're driving through your door.
Oh, that's very interesting. So, just to tell you a little story about cases that I loved, 32 years practice, and the ones that I enjoyed. Of course, we enjoy the people that get better, okay, and the ones that we get excited about, and we enjoy getting paid. I mean, those are things. But I kind of enjoyed the ones that always responded. And in 32 years in practice, the ones that always responded, always got better, were babies with colic. And
Sure.
those are, and part of the reason for that is that the parents are the most excited people on the planet when you
Hmm.
get their baby better. And they
Yep.
become absolute advocates. And the medical profession has like zero answers for that.
Yep.
I mean, well, it might be digestion and try a different milk and all
Yep.
these, different, things. And I've never had a kid with colic not respond to chiropractic care. And so, you know,
Well, then for you, Jeff, then we'd be targeting peds and OBs.
right,
Right?
right.
That's who you educate. Hey, guess what? This is what Jeff does. This is what he wants to see.
Yeah.
Same type of concept.
So I just wanted to tickle the ideas into the brains of our listeners here that it doesn't have to be, just carpal tunnel or just, whatever, tendonitis. It can be something that just gets you excited, like helping babies and helping
Mhm.
colic. So,
Mhm.
your company can help with all of that. Um, Question for you: What's the biggest roadblock that you see with providers working with each other and referring to each other?
I think the biggest thing is going to be okay. So a lot of times when our clients start, they think it's always got to be about the provider who you're marketing, right? But most times in the office and actually on our reporting systems, there's a block. It'll have your contact and what was said, but then it'll have the referral decision maker and the contact. The reason that's so important is this. Most times in that office, the referral decision maker is not the provider.
Mm,
There's someone else in that office that's extremely influential.
yeah,
So a lot of times they miss that. Oh, I just want to talk to someone. Well, guess what? You want to talk to so and so. That might not be who you need to talk to, right? We need to build what we call a champion office visit with everyone that's there so they understand the process, right? In addition to that, this is not about buying lunches for a bunch of people who want to try a new restaurant. That's not what we're talking about. Where we're talking about truly creating value and also separating yourselves from the other reps who are calling on them. That is the farmer reps and device reps. Because if you think about it, they're strictly taken in. I have a bunch of them that work for me, so that's I'm not going to offend them, but they're there to try to why their digital widget is better than the next guy. Versus us, we're there for the patients, right? So
mm,
it's a different communication aspect of how you message that to those referring providers.
okay, okay. No, that's really important because I think you're right. It's there's people behind the scenes that are pushing the buttons and directing people. In fact, it's even happened to me personally, where a doctor recommended something, I think an ENT or something like that, and the doctor didn't know anybody. I went to the front desk, and they gave me to a patient coordinator person, and that person had a list,
Yeah.
and oh, you should go and see this person. That was like
Yeah.
the key person right there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a perfect example, Jeff. And a lot of times those two, they'll give them three or four different options. And those that are building relationships where our team's at, they're going to point to one and say, go to this one. Right. So it makes sense the more we're in front of them creating value. Because if you think of a referring provider, right, or a referral coordinator, or that patient coordinator you're talking about, on average, they're going to refer to 6 to 8 different specialties. When we're talking about chiropractic, right, who they're targeting, they're going to refer to 6 to 8 different specialties. So by you being a resource for them on that particular referring provider, it makes their job easier, right?
Yeah.
Because you're consistently in front of them and knowing who they're dealing with. And gosh forbid something goes sideways, which it happens, it's healthcare. We're able to help that relationship versus that just soaking in that we're not sending you anymore because now we're in front of them and can resolve that and they know we're going to be a resource for them.
So give me a peek behind the curtain a little bit with how your team works, because I know you work with people all over the country and whatnot. So how does your team do do the job?
Yep.
To
Yep.
get you into these places and get these referrals coming, and how much is required of the chiropractor?
Yeah, good question. Yep. So we have a couple different models. We work with people. We have it where our team does the work, and then we have a coaching referral growth and profit system we call where we coach your team doing it. Either one of them is going to start. The initial thing we're going to do is something called the client success profile. It's 30 token questions I have about you and your clinic. And we're going to learn about you and your messaging and how you want yourself portrayed and all this stuff, right? To make sure we're on the same point. Then what we're going to do is we're going to gather a referral data list, right? We're going to pull, besides for maybe your wish list or who you may be working with, we have access to dang near every provider in the country. So we're able to pull data sets from your marketplace to pull those targets according to what you want to go after and what you want to target. Now, primarily a lot of times, and again, this can be customized to any provider and what you want to do, whether you want personal injury or you want work comp, or if you have the other main ones, right? The family practice, internal medicine, urgent care is a huge one to go after, whatever those specialties are, neurosurgeons. We target those lists, right? Then once you have that, one of the biggest things going to be is the communication with those offices. So we've broke down throughout the whole year every messaging point and contact that we have of what your objective is for that visit. Okay. Now, we talked to referring providers. Okay, so your referring providers that you're going after, on average, will see 100 to 125 patients a week. Okay, so we're talking family practice, internal medicine, those types, 100 to 125 patients. Next week is a new 100 to 125. After that, 120. So it's a huge fertile ground for patients that may qualify for your services. So our program we talk about is visiting those referring providers twice a month. Okay, twice a
Okay.
month you're in front of them, right? Not every quarter or not bringing something during the holiday. They're like, where are you the other 11 months of the year type thing, right? So it's consistency with them. So each visit, we broke down the goals and objectives of every single visit that you're out there to not only you're providing value for the referring provider, but you're also helping yourself gauge that relationship on where you're at. Because then what we do when we come back, we'll evaluate what happened and then determine what we're doing with those referring providers, right? Is it
Okay.
someone that you're going to remove or someone you're going to add on or whatever that looks like, right? But that data is pretty important to understand the relationship.
Now, does that taper off a little bit down the road, or will it stay at twice a month
Just
ongoing?
depends.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends. And this is what it looks like. So I'll tell you some of our best clients, right? Some of our biggest clients, we're there every week, right? Some big ones that we have, we're there every week. Why? Because they know that the more we're in front of them, the more value we create. Now, I think once a week's a lot, right? As far as a referring provider goes, but it just depends on the situation, what we're dealing with, right? So that may be if a couple different things are going to happen. So for example, when we do the referral evaluation, some of it's going to be some providers do have good referring providers. And they'll be like, don't worry about them. They send us everything. Well, no, let's worry about them. Let's protect and enhance that relationship because there's a lot of turnover in offices also. So you want to make sure that you're still stabilizing that relationship and staying in front of them and creating value for them. We do get frantic calls every once in a while like, hey, listen, Dave, I lost 40% of my business. Well, what happened? Well, so and so sold their clinic to somebody else and they don't know who we are. Well, guess what? You should have been building those, stabilizing that relationship, right? So that's a big thing too, is understand their frequency, and it may go down to every 3 weeks or maybe once a month, but just depends on the unique situation. We've seen that cadence of every 2 weeks is pretty good as far as getting, driving the value that you want.
Yeah. It's interesting. And I've got a question about how to make this work, or what happens to make it fail. But I'll start by saying that I've got a program called Team Doc, and I mentioned it to you earlier. But I built a program to find the right types of people that you want in your practice. And so Team Doc is a referral program. I go out and sponsor teams. So I'm getting into the community, and I decided that I wanted to have more kids, more families, and more athletes in my practice. And so that was the target group of people. Your program is really targeting the exact. It might be the condition. It might be the insurance provider. It's very targeted, and it works in the background where I'm going out, and I mean I did a 10-minute talk for a trap shooting team, and some people are like, trap shooting, that's a sport? I'm like, yeah, I sponsored the trap shooting team, and we signed up 81 new patients. So I was there, did a 10-minute talk, signed up people for about 40 minutes. I was there for a total of about an hour and got 81 new patients on my schedule. Now, not all of them though were the right patients, and so
Mhm.
there's always that issue, but it's a numbers game. So I love the idea of having the exact right type of people, the right referrals, and there's such a strength in having that right person in front of you when you're, explaining your program to them. So I really like that. But tell me how, because I know there's some that fail at it. So how does your program potentially fail? What does the doctor have to screw up?
Yeah.
What does a client have to mess up in order for your program not to work?
Yeah, good question. There's three things, right? If there's three things that if they're followed through on, dang near 100% of the time, you're going to be successful, right? Number one is on, we talked about before, every patient that walks through your door, who their doctor is, you have to know that stuff, right? You have to take the time. I understand it's another checkbox in your intake form, but pay attention to it. You got to know who they are, right? So if they're not following through on that, because we want to make sure, again, how to nurture those relationships and how to build those. The second thing is going to be is having the documentation of the visits. Now, if we do the program, we document it, so that's not an issue. But like our coaching programs, we do have a CRM that they can log the calls and provide that. So the details of the visit is a pretty big deal. But one of the biggest things is going to be is taking a dedicated amount of time to do referral development. This is not something that you're going to do for a month or two and then think, oh, geez, it didn't work. I can't do it. No, no, no. You're building relationships. Think about people that you know personally. Who are your closest friends, your closest family members you deal with? They're the ones you see more often, right? The ones you're in front of, the ones you can trust. So really for us, it's understand the stability of that long term, because the longer you do this, the more value you're going to get out of it. And if you think about it also, the targets for chiropractors or most providers, it's usually every 8 to 10 months that that patient is in front of that office. So we talked about before, 100 to 125 patients a week times 52 weeks, right? They're seeing 4 to 5,000 patients a year that may qualify for your services. And they're going to have an 83% conversion rate. So it's worth it, right? It's
Yeah.
worth it to put that time into it. So that's when we see that it doesn't work, it's really taking the time to understand that this is a process. And what we recommend is that first week of every month that there is the provider is meeting with someone else on his team, if it's the office manager, whoever else, with whoever else is doing that referral development for them, and take 20, 30 minutes and talk through the process. What did we do well? What did we not do well? Who do we need to change? What does it look like? What marketing material and collateral we're doing moving forward? So that's a big deal also that we see. In addition to that, the communication regarding marketing materials and collateral. Okay, whatever you do, don't make a folder with a bunch of stuff and drop off in the office. It's going to be in the garbage before you get in the car, right? Don't do that.
Right.
You want pieces that you're able to deliver to the office that is fresh every time you're there or every couple times and has talking points on it that allow your staff to communicate in the way you want it communicated and creating value for the provider. Those are the biggest things that we see that really cause issues if they don't follow through with them.
Okay. Okay. Now, and you mentioned a process, and man, if you and I can like just shout this from the mountaintops, there's a lot of different ways to get new patients and get the right patients in the door. But everything I have ever heard of and seen and witnessed and done personally, in 32 years requires effort and time. Effort
Can't agree more.
over time, and there's no magic bullet that is going to change everything overnight and next month your practice is completely different. It's a process. You got to believe and stick to the process. So I appreciate that. But what if somebody says to you, well, how long will it take typically to get some traction?
Great question. Yeah.
When should I expect some result from this?
Yeah, good question. Okay, so this is what we see just statistically across the board, right? And the only wavering of change of this is if you have existing relationships, which moves faster. But I'm going to tell you if you're starting from scratch, okay?
Okay.
If you're starting from scratch to do this, your first 3 months, you should get 1 to 2x your investment. Okay, first 3 months, 1 to 2x your investments. Months 4 to 6, it should be 4 to 6x. Month 7 on, it should be about 8 to 10x. Well, why is that? It's because it takes time. Not like, for example, chiropractors. You're never at a shortage of referring providers. There's a bazillion of them out there. It's finding the right ones. Who are the right ones that has a demographic, the willingness, the staffing that understands what you do and why it's of value, right? So working through that process does take time. But if you take a look at it, And that's only, at 6 months, you're getting 6 extra investment. It's hard to find that, right? And when
Yeah.
you talked about before on systems, we just were consulted with a group. One of our big clients is multi-franchise, hundreds of locations. They just did a analysis for their ad spend on social media. Okay. And so the quarter was ending and they did so their increase has been about 70% increase in costs over the last year, right? Yet the return is about 70% less. And that trend's not changing, right?
Wow.
The social sides and everything else, and that's why more and more of what we do is becoming more and more important and the stuff that you do because it's building systems to drive quality, not chasing something, not throwing something against the wall and hoping something sticks. That's not what this is, right? It's creating value long term, so you don't have to wake up every day trying to figure out where your next new patient's coming from, right? You
Okay.
have a system in place.
Now, somebody might be overwhelmed going, oh my goodness, I don't want to be contacting and reaching out to 147 other, doctors. And my guess is that number, the number of good referral sources is a lot smaller than we think. Is that true? What's the
Yeah,
magic number, or
yeah,
what do you see?
good question. Yeah, yeah. So demographically, it just depends on where you're at and where you're located at. But usually, what we do, like our bottom level is 30,
Okay.
right? 30 is kind of the bottom of the barrel. We have some we do hundreds that we do for them, but 30 is probably the bottom because you got to have enough people that yeah, as you talked about previously, enough lines in the water, right? You got to make sure you're talking to enough people to understand that value that set and where you're going to and those types of items. But getting 30 in any market's not hard to do, right? It's just making sure that you're communicating with the right people and who you need to talk to regarding such. And frankly, so for us, there's really only three reasons that a referral source would lead a list that you have, right? In this example, you went to an office and like, hey, listen, my husband's a chiropractor. I'm never sending to you. Okay, fine. We go to the next one, right? The second is going to be is the demographics. The office does not have the demographic of the patient that you want, right? Maybe it's a pair mix thing, maybe it's whatever else, but they just don't, they're not a good fit, right? The third is you've been there long enough that you're not getting anything out of them. Now, and at that time, which is there's a correct time for it, you can ask for a referral. Say, listen, what do I have to do to get a referral? You've been here, you know what we've been here, we know what you do, the value rate, and then listen to what they have to say. Now, you can't do that right away because they'll kick you out of the office. But there is a time when you've created enough value for that relationship that it's a fair question, and we'll walk you through how to do that.
Okay. Great. Great.
Mhm.
Great. Um, One question I know docs will probably have is how do you get past the in-network issue, where you're building a relationship with a company or whatever, and they're like, well, no, you're not in our network, or you're not within our system, because this system that we belong to, we refer first within our system, and then we'll look to refer out. How do you get past that objection?
Yeah, and so it just depends on those. In chiropractic, we don't see it as much with those systems because it's something that's unique that's outside their system. For example, we get that a lot too in some big groups, whether you're dealing with fertility or if you're dealing with some mental health who don't have it. If their block of their system doesn't have a specialty like that in their system, they're required to be able to send it out also. So that's what we talk to when we talk to a referring provider. You're also grade those, right? So we call it, in that case, it's in a system that can refer or in a system that can't refer. And a lot of times it's dependent on the contract that they have. Some are able to do whatever they want, right? Even if they're in a system, some cannot. But that's some of the learning as far as what you need to go and do. And in addition to that, find out what the indicators are. They may say, hey, listen, we can only send in the system unless, and they may give you what that out is, right? The box that you need to check. So again, it's communicating to them to understand who they are or what's going on with them.
Okay. Well, Dave, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I want to make sure that our listeners have the way to reach out to you if this is interesting to anybody who's listening, and you want to explore it a little bit better. What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so we have on the screen here, this QR code is for our referral evaluation. We offer it for nothing, right? 20, 30 minutes, learn more about you and if this is a fit or if we're a fit together. Dr. Referral Institute, you can find us on anywhere from LinkedIn to Facebook. Our website is referralsfordoctors.com is what our website is, referrals with an S, doctors with an S.com. Take a look at it on there. We're more than willing to, again, free is a good price. So the free referral evaluation allows us to talk to you. There's nothing more passionate about and understand the chiropractic, right? Being one and understanding and being in that field, I get it, right? So we'd love to have the opportunity to talk to you to see if we are a fit or possibly how we can help you. Our biggest thing is this. Chiropractic is one of the professions that is probably communicated least to referring providers that there's the most need for.
Yeah.
So helping them with that is a great win for everyone if you can help them do that. But yeah, you can find us on the web, find us on LinkedIn. We're more than willing to help however we can. But you look up Doctor Referral Institute, you'll find us pretty easily. You can also email me if you want, Dr. Dave at referralsfordoctors.com, if there's some questions you have. But most times people will start with that free referral evaluation.
Okay. Well, it has been a pleasure talking to you, Dave, and thanks for educating our audience. I appreciate the information and the time that you've given to our audience, so I appreciate that very much.
Again, Jeff, I appreciate the time. Keep up the good work.
All right. So, for all of you out there, if you're thinking about wanting to build relationships with the providers in your community, and I mean, this should be a no-brainer, right? This should absolutely be a no-brainer. Give Dave a call, look him up, look at his things online, referralsfordoctors.com. Great site that can give you a little information, and then sign up for a free meeting with him so that you can just go over what exactly they do, how they do it, what it costs, all that kind of stuff. Educate yourself about it, and then remember that it takes work. Everything requires work of you. Nothing happens for free and for nothing. It just takes some work, but if you're willing to put in the work, it will do what it's supposed to do. So stay hungry, my friends, and as always, pay it forward.